Combat, intense duels, and even strategic battles are definitely an indispensable spice in the world of anime and manga. So, I wonder if any of you folks here have ever wondered about the iconic 1v1 solo fights that have taken the Weibo community by storm all over the world. Come on, let me jump right into this compilation list. Note, this list is based on my perspective, so there might still be other solo fights not included, so feel free to suggest additions in the comments section, okay? Now, let's go. Introduction in Naruto vs Sasuke Final Valley. When talking about one of the best solo fights in anime history, I immediately think of the battle that took place at the Final Valley after the Great Ninja War between Naruto and Sasuke. It wasn't just simply a battle showcasing the power of two Chinese sorcerers disguised as ninjas back then. It was a battle that resolved all the conflicts between hatred and revenge versus empathy and cooperation. At the same time, it also showed the combination of techniques, power, and emotions of the two main characters. Although it was the final battle, I honestly gotta say this fight didn't have any peak strategic thinking, because basically, by this point, they'd lost their minds. Both sides just spammed skills like crazy. Then, when they ran out of strength, they switched to punching. In terms of power at this point, Naruto and Sasuke were evenly matched. Both received a portion of the Six Paths power and knew how to optimize it. Basically, all the ninjutsu they had, like Chidori, Susanoo, Rasengan, etc., were fully displayed here. So, when it was adapted into anime, it became a spectacle of dazzling skill combos, chaotic and fun. But if you analyze it closely, there's nothing to it, frankly. If anything, Naruto got a dirty buff to win. The only thing that maybe stands out is the Taijutsu battle and the final Chidori-ish Rasengan clash. That created a sense of nostalgia for their first battle, one of the most iconic images in the entire series. But why is it still considered one of the best battles? Because its meaning lies behind it. This was the battle of two rivals after a long journey to understand and empathize with each other. It wasn't merely about determining who was stronger. It was also the confrontation of two ideologies. One wanted to change and destroy, while the other wanted to preserve and protect. Two people, two different concepts of peace. It was the pinnacle of Kishimoto's storytelling, in how he built the beginning and the end. In the first battle, Naruto completely failed to understand the pain that Sasuke had experienced. Even though both were orphans, Sasuke had to witness his entire family being slaughtered and live on harboring hatred for his brother. On the other hand, Naruto didn't have parents from the start and was shunned by the village, forced to act out to gain attention. So, from the beginning, Naruto simply couldn't understand Sasuke's pain. And it wasn't until the final battle, after experiencing Jiraiya's death and meeting his parents, that he could finally empathize and truly understand what Sasuke went through. And at this point, he was finally capable enough to bring Sasuke back. Finally, when the battle ended, Sasuke did return to the village, but still wandered alone, protecting the village from the shadows. Meanwhile, Naruto became Hokage, building the Hidden Leaf into a strong and prosperous village. A beautiful ending for Kishimoto's masterpiece. Kakashi vs Obito. I solemnly present one of the greatest, but also the most heartbreaking, solo battles Naruto ever had. Kakashi vs Obito. A battle of the past, of pain, and of children who once dreamed of being heroes. This fight wasn't fought to live or to see who was stronger. This was between two old friends who once fought side by side, now facing off in the Kamui dimension. A place where no one could interfere, no dirty tricks could disrupt. Just two men settling their scores, beating each other senseless just to lessen the pain. To be honest, in terms of pure spectacle, this fight was pretty average. There was Reikiri and a few teleporting moves. A bummer was that they mostly disappear. But what I'll never forget is the pacing and editing. When they were punching, it cut back to flashbacks. When they unleashed techniques, it overlaid scenes of young Obito training with Kakashi. Every punch felt like it was hitting the audience's heart, not the characters' faces. Kakashi, as always, was pained by having killed Ren. And Obito, damn, he was broken from the start. One side carried the ideal of protecting friends, the other was betrayed by belief and turned to illusion. The brilliance is that both were right. And that's why this battle is so haunting. This fight didn't have a clear winner, but it brought the past to a close. The two friends continued to protect their ideals. Obito walked the path of an antagonist for a while longer, and Kakashi, who was always haunted by his mistakes, finally truly forgave himself. Luffy vs Rob Lucci Enies Lobby. The Enies Lobby arc, the best story arc ever, where the Straw Hat crew stormed in to rescue Robin. The battle between Luffy and Lucy is still considered one of the most evenly matched to this day. On one side was the strongest assassin who had never failed. On the other was the rising super rookie fighting to protect his goal. Lucy is a well-trained assassin, proficient in Rokushiki, 6 superhuman combat techniques. He fights coldly, emotionlessly, focusing on finishing off his opponent quickly and effectively. With his ability to transform into a leopard thanks to his own devil fruit, Lucy combines superior physical strength with refined combat techniques, creating an almost unbeatable opponent. Luffy, on the other hand, fights with all his heart and youthful will. He doesn't have refined combat techniques like Lucy, but he makes up for it with incredible adaptability. In this battle, Luffy used Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd, new techniques that enhanced his speed and strength to face Lucy. Despite being heavily injured and exhausted, Luffy stood up after every fall with only one goal, protecting his crewmates and bringing Robin back. Overall, strategy was there, but he mainly fought with emotion. Honestly, Luffy wasn't more skilled than Lucy, but he was more stubborn, basically. The outcome after this battle was clear. Luffy was the first and only person at that time to defeat Rob Lucci, the strongest member of CP9. CP9, the world government's most elite assassination force, was practically wiped out from here. The government lost an important tool. Meanwhile, Luffy's fame began to spread across the ocean. And it was also the first time I clearly saw the cost of getting stronger. Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd left Luffy completely exhausted, unable to move. Even though he won the battle, it showed Luffy's physical limits. And that's why later Luffy had to learn Haki and upgrade his skills instead of just spamming gears. Midoriya vs Todoroki UA Sports Festival. At the final match of the UA Sports Festival, Izuku Midoriya faced Shoto Todoroki. The two of them competed for the top spot in their year in front of tens of thousands of spectators. The context was particularly serious. Todoroki carried inner turmoil with his father, while Deku was determined to help his friend unleash his true power. Only 2 people on the field, the tension was pushed to the limit. This battle wasn't just an explosion of skill, it felt like a chest was bursting because of the overwhelming emotion. Deku initially subtly used one for all just enough. His strategy was to act to push Todoroki to his limit. Todoroki, meanwhile, unleashed chilling ice onto the ground. With his other hand, he unleashed raging fire, creating monstrous heat. Both performed combined attacks, pushing each other to the brink. A giant ice pillar collided with a storm of flames. The absolute peak move was Deku doing everything just to provoke Todoroki to unleash his hidden fire. The climax was the clash between blue icy light and red fiery light, accompanied by screams echoing to the heart. I watched it and felt chills, yet also warmth in my heart because of the radiant comradeship shining like twinkling stars. Oh well, Todoroki finally unleashed his power, accepting both fire and ice within himself. Although he lost, Deku had achieved his goal. He had unlocked the chains binding Todoroki. All Might vs All for One UA Airport. In the great battle at the UA Airport, All Might decided to fight one for all one-on-one. No one else. The stage was the airport, just evacuated, with only 2 platforms left. All Might at this moment had only a bit of his last strength left. But he still charged straight at his old enemy with the tail of a hero. There were no other spectators, just 2 people and destiny. The world in their fists. After watching this battle, I was literally on the edge of my seat, folks. All Might unleashed his power wildly, muscles surging, the air vibrating. One for one was just as fierce. He absorbed all the energy from his opponent and countered fiercely. Every punch was incredibly heavy. Every blow landed like a hammer. The climax was when All Might unleashed Texas Plus Ultra, pouring out all his final strength and delivering a historic blow. This scene was so intense it shattered the screen. The whole anime world was stunned and incredibly moved. It was both epic and mesmerizingly beautiful. Finally, One for One couldn't take it anymore. All Might ran out of strength, completing his final hero mission. As a result, the flame of One for One went out. All Might lost his superpower forever. However, his smile inspired countless generations of students, colleagues, and friends to continue the path of heroism. Rengoku vs Akaza Mugen Train Arc. The setting of this battle took place right after Tanjiro's group had defeated the Lower Moon Demon on the Infinite Train. Upper Moon 3, Akaza, unexpectedly appeared. He challenged the Flame Hashira, Rengoku, to a one-on-one battle. I still remember vividly the scene of them standing in the middle of the shattered train car, surrounded by debris, with flickering firelight. On one side was the Flame Hashira, Kojiro Rengoku, with soaring momentum, an aura like a blazing sun. On the other was Akaza, brutal with the excited smile of a bloodthirsty fiend. The tension was absolutely suffocating, just like I and you folks are holding our breath watching two masters in a life or death duel. So, why was this battle epic? First, in terms of power. On one side was the flame Hashira, Rengoku, pouring out all his firepower with flame breathing, unleashing his strongest technique, Rengoku Thousand Flaming Heavens, cutting glowing sword paths through the night. On the other side was the demon fist Akaza, just as fierce, using blood demon art with destructive death pressure punches, shattering the surrounding space. Every blow exchanged shook the train car, sending rocks and dirt flying. I watched it and felt my gut twist, my heart pounding, wanting to jump out of my chest. Akaza constantly tempted Rengoku to become a demon to gain immortality. But Rengoku remained steadfast, asserting his ideal of demon slaying and protecting humans. His eyes were full of pride as he protected those behind him, earning even Akaza's respect. The contrast between the temptation of evil and the unyielding righteousness was clearly displayed. A stark contrast between good and evil, but in the end, evil won. The image of Rengoku collapsing, his breathing fading, but with a serene smile. He had protected everyone until the last minute, bringing countless readers to tears. So, the Demon Slayer core lost to Hashira, but his death also became the motivation for Tanjiro's group to strive harder, constantly training towards the ultimate goal of destroying the Demon King Muzan. A short but absolutely haunting solo battle, both visually spectacular and tear-jerking. Sesshomaru vs. Inuyasha. This battle between the two legendary half-demon brothers is the pinnacle of sibling animosity in Inuyasha. The setting occurred near the end of the journey when Sesshomaru and Inuyasha faced each other amidst the chaotic battlefield, chasing Naraku. Sesshomaru appeared coldly amidst the rubble, his hand on the hilt of Tensiga, facing Inuyasha, who was tightly gripping the glowing red Tessega. This wasn't just a test of strength, it was a clash of pride between two half-brothers with different mothers. One was an arrogant great demon, the other a hot-headed half-demon. I remember the absolutely thrilling feeling when the two dog brothers fought, shaking the heavens and earth, literally biting each other like dogs. This battle clearly showed Inuyasha's growth and Sesshomaru's psychological transformation. With every technique they unleashed, they aimed for the opponent's vile point. Just one small mistake could send either of the two dogs to meet their maker at any moment. The psychological complexes of the two brothers were also a highlight. Sesshomaru carried a heavy complex about his father giving the precious holy sword to his younger brother, so he fought while venting years of resentment. Inuyasha, on one hand, was annoyed by his brother constantly trying to steal the sword. On the other hand, he always longed for acknowledgement. This complex emotional conflict made every sword clash heavy with meaning, not just simple fighting for the sake of fighting. The result of this battle was no clear winner, but it wasn't too important, because after the battle, the bond between the dog brothers improved. Sesshomaru for the first time acknowledged his younger brother's strength, admitting that Inuyasha completely deserved Tessega. As for Inuyasha, although he didn't exactly like his aloof older brother, deep down he understood many things. He realized Sesshomaru's pride and the harsh, protective nature he had towards him. I believe that after this brother-against-brother battle, the relationship between the two brothers entered a new chapter, no longer just blind hatred, but gradually forming mutual respect. In the end, they were able to fight side by side against Naraku, something no one would have dared to imagine before. This is the solo battle that put an end to the conflict between the Inuyasha brothers. It was both grand and meaningful. It felt incredibly satisfying to watch. Amuro vs. Char's counterattack. If we're talking about legendary clashes in the MCA Mobile Suit Gundam world, I'll immediately remember the classic showdown between Amuro Ray and Char Aznable in outer space. The saying is the final battle in the movie Char's Counterattack. Char, leading Neozeon, intended to drop the entire Axis asteroid onto Earth, while Amuro, piloting the new Gundam, decided to stop that apocalyptic disaster. The two of them charged at each other in the dark expanse of space, surrounded by glowing debris of a space station and the asteroid. I got goosebumps seeing Amuro's new Gundam launch its fin funnels, weaving like a flock of light birds, firing laser beams rapidly, while Char, in the red Sazabi mobile suit, swung his beam saber, slicing through projectile barrages. The entire dark sky lit up with energy cannons and explosions, truly like a cosmic fireworks show. Both pilots are new types, people with supernatural intuition, and Char could almost read each other's thoughts. Every sword swing, Every shot was unleashed and countered in a flash. Char used every trick, deploying heat lures to make Amuro lose track, then suddenly accelerating to close in for a melee strike. Amuro was just as skilled, humbly using his fin funnels to distract, then circling around behind Char, resulting in incredibly tense dogfights. I watched without blinking, on edge every second, as if I were sitting in the cockpit of the Gundam myself. Psychologically and emotionally, this battle carried deep meaning. Char held onto old grudges and an extremist belief that humanity had to leave Earth, while Amuro fought to protect his home and friends from that insane plan. Two individuals who were reincarnated rivals outpoured out all their feelings, their pain from loss. Both had lost loved ones at the hands of the other. This resentment mixed with mutual respect made the fight more than just a contest of who would win. It was also like a final dialogue between two soulmates on a fierce battlefield. The outcome of this battle became a legend. Axis was stopped, humanity narrowly escaped disaster, but in that moment of miracle, Amuro and Char vanished into a halo of light, like two shooting stars extinguishing in the universe. No one ever saw them again, a tragic ending for the pair of formidable opponents. The folks who watched it felt both proud and choked up. Amuro became a hero who saved Earth. Char also put an end to his crazy dream. The confrontation will always be remembered as a monument of the anime mobile suit Gundam genre, both grand and moving down to the last cell. Rimuru vs Hinata Tensura. Even a formidable leader like Rimuru had a day when someone almost wiped him out, and the solo battle with Hinata Sakaguchi is proof of that. The setting takes place in Season 2 of that time. I got reincarnated as a slime. Rimuru, on his way back to Tempest, was suddenly intercepted by Hinata, who challenged him. Hinata is the captain of the Holy Knights of the Western Holy Church, a heaven-class swordswoman who was once taught by Shizu. She appeared in shiny armor, her eyes cold as ice and radiating killing intent. She demanded Rimuru's life to punish the Demon Lord. Right from the opening, the leader Rimuru was almost done for. I watched with my heart in my throat. This battle showed Hinata's superior combat skills and was a rare instance where Rimuru was put on the defensive. Hinata used a special barrier that blocked Rimuru's recovery and magic, turning him from an immortal slime into vulnerable walking meat. Every sword strike from Hinata was incredibly fast. She closed in an attack using Aijutsu, drawing and striking in a single motion. One strike radiated holy light, not only causing physical damage but also burning the monster's soul. Rimuru took a few hits and panicked. Great Sage in his head also seemed warnings of extreme danger. But don't misunderstand, this wasn't an unbalanced match, because the leader Rimuru himself wasn't actively seeking this situation, and Rimuru could still adapt and escape cleanly with just one clone. That alone is enough to show that even though she could push Rimuru to the brink, in reality, the leader still had many trump cards he hadn't used yet. Anyway, this was still a battle that brought Rimuru back down to Earth. It helped Rimuru realize that the world still had many strong individuals who could threaten him and the kingdom of Tempest. He understood that naive overconfidence could cost him dearly. So afterward, Rimuru decided to evolve into a true demon lord to be strong enough to protect his subordinates. At the same time, this encounter with Hinata planted the seed for a larger confrontation between Tempest and the Holy Church later on. Although he regrettably lost the battle, Rimuru learned a painful lesson and became much stronger. And I and you folks got a spectacle, because it's rare to see the main character being pushed so hard. This solo battle was truly incredibly tense and full of meaning, a turning point in our slime's journey to dominance. Denji vs Katana Man Chainsaw Man. Moving on to the solo battle that caps off the first part of Chainsaw Man. I humbly call this the most brutal chopping duel on a train. The setting takes place right after the Katana Man gang caused chaos in Tokyo and killed many devil hunters, including Himeno. Denji, filled with soaring rage, chased after Katana Man, leading to this fated battle. This battle gathered all the elements: crazy violence and dark humor, characteristic of Chainsaw Man. In terms of bloody action, Denji and Katana Man charged at each other without hesitation. Katana Man had the advantage of speed. Every slash he made was precise. His demon sword blade swung, splitting train seats like butter, and even slashed a deep wound across Denji's stomach, almost letting his guts spill out. While the tough, bloody mess of a character Denji still laughed wildly. Blood splattered everywhere in the carriage. The two demon guys were like they were butchering each other alive. It might seem like a no-brain solo fight, but actually, Denji had a trick up his sleeve. After a few rounds of being overwhelmed, Denji pretended to be careless to bait Katana Man into unleashing a decisive slash. Thinking he had victory secured, Katana Man had no idea Denji had hidden a chainsaw blade in his leg. In the opponent's moment of carelessness, Denji unleashed a kick, splitting Katana Man from groin to gut in a clean line. This sneaky ambush move knocked Katana Man onto the train floor, utterly defeated. And the outcome after that, I'm sure everyone knows. This is the solo battle that ended the Katana Man arc perfectly. Full of blood, tension, and craziness, true to the brand. After watching, you folks can only nod your heads, absolutely peak. Kirito vs Heathcliff Aseo Aincrad. The decisive battle between Kirito and Heathcliff in Sword Art Online. Aincrad can be seen as the ultimate clash between the two strongest players in the game at that time. The setting is floor 75 of Aincrad. Right after defeating the boss, Heathcliff's true identity was revealed. He was Kaobai Kiko, the creator of Aseo. He declared that if Kirito defeated him in this solo battle, all players would be freed. The other players stood around in breathless silence. The atmosphere was thick with tension, because this wasn't just a PK player kill battle. It was a life or death fight deciding the fate of 6,000 surviving people. This is a battle between two players with opposite styles. Heathcliff possessed the Divine Sword and Holy Shield along with the highest defense stats in the game, to the point that no one had been able to land a single hit on him before. He attacked steadily and meticulously. Every such had a wide reach and monstrous damage. Meanwhile, Kirito used sword skills, fighting aggressively like a storm with his famous 16-hit Starburst stream combo. However, Heathcliff's strategic thinking was a level high. He calmly defended, waiting for Kirito to finish his combo, then seized the moment to deliver a critical counterattack. Thanks to intense willpower, as soon as love, she rushed out to take the blow for Kirito and died. In a moment of carelessness, Kirito took a direct stab through the chest from Heathcliff's holy sword. Kirito's HP dropped to 0. His body gradually shattered into pixels. Amioto and you folks probably froze, thinking the protagonist was dead, game over for real. But how can an anime main character die so easily? There's always a surprise. Kirito broke the game rules, reviving at the very last moment. He appeared like a phantom, the sword in his hand shimmering with destined blue light, startling Heathcliff and leaving him no time to react. Ending this hellish game. Winning or losing ultimately wasn't as important as Kirito ending the death game. This solo battle was both tense and incredibly dramatic, and was an emotional climax for the first Aseo arc. It showed that whether in a game or reality, willpower and emotion are the ultimate strength. I believe the moment Kirito stood up from death to stab his enemy will forever be remembered by fans as a symbol of the plus ultra spirit, surpassing one's limits in anime. Gojo vs Sukuna Jujutsu Kaisen. So, this is probably one of the hottest solo fights of 2023 in the manga community. When the two kings of Jujutsu finally faced each other in a death match, Gojo Satoru vs Ryomen Sukuna. The setting is after Gojo was freed from the prison realm. He immediately declared he would take care of Sukuna, who by then had taken over Megumi's body and absorbed almost all 20 fingers. They decided to choose ruined Shinjuku as their battlefield, avoiding harm to civilians. The two strongest monsters clashed. The pressure of their cursed energy made the ground crack and the air vibrate intensely. In terms of techniques and abilities, this battle truly broke all limits for both Jujutsu sorcerers and cursed spirits. Right at the start of the fight, neither side hesitated. They went all out, opening their domain expansions and clashing. Two giant domains overlap, swallowing the city block, creating a surreal scene. On one side was the unlimited void, crushing the mind with an endless stream of information. On the other side was the gloomy shrine of Malevolent Shrine, slashing everything with hundreds of dismantled blades. The domain battle became the focal point. Gojo and Sukuna constantly shattered each other's domains and rebuilt them in a flash. Both went all in, draining the cursed energy. The ground in Shinjuku was ripped apart. Every time the domains clashed, skyscrapers were cut clean off at the top or ground into dust. Both are masters of reverse curse technique, so finishing each other off was very difficult. With his infinity, every skill of Gojo was very annoying, along with the ultimate curse technique reversal. Red and curse technique lapse, blue. Even more supreme was their convergence and the creation of Hollow Purple, which almost gave Gojo the opportunity to win. On Sukuna's side, he was cunning, summoning Mahoraga, the divine general who can adapt to any technique, as his trump card. Mahoraga spun its will and gradually adapted to Gojo's infinity, helping Sukuna finally find a way to cut the t-shirt. That was to cut the space containing the teacher. Amiyotoi watched holding my breath. There are rarely battles where the audience's emotions are spun around like a top. At first, everyone was thrilled because Gojo overpowered Sukuna. Everyone thought teacher Gojo would carry this story on his back. But Jeej truly knows how to troll the fan team. As the fight went on, Sukuna caught up, and a sudden space-cutting slash from him split the teacher in half. The outcome of the battle left fans stunned. The strongest Jujutsu sorcerer became 2.5. After a long battle, Gojo's sudden death made the Jujutsu world's situation incredibly dire for the protagonists, losing their strongest pillar right before the final battle. Sukuna was also quite injured after the fight, but still had enough strength to take on the entire Jujutsu sorcerer team afterward. He lost Mahoraga, but ultimately achieved his goal of eliminating Gojo. The battle of the century, with one side being the strongest currently, and the other being the strongest in history, ended leaving so many readers worldwide in shock. Baki vs. Yujiro. Baki, the fated battle between Baki and Yujiro, the two demons of the Hama family, is the ultimate peak of the Baki series. The spectators gathered in silence. Everyone knew this wasn't just a fight for superiority, but also the release of hatred accumulated over many years between father and son. Before this, Yujiro had killed Baki's mother, filling his childhood with hatred and obsession. Baki had trained painstakingly for so long just for this day, to be strong enough to face the strongest man on the planet. In terms of martial arts, this battle was a combination of all the finest elements in Baki. On one side was Yujiro with pure strength, punches that hurt, kicks that landed hard. On the other side was Baki with technique and youth. The battle of the two strongest bodies in the world. All physical elements, speed, technique, everything surpassed human imagination, to the point where they fought by sending out their souls. It's beyond belief. I thought the best part was when they moved faster than normal human eyes could follow. The concrete ring shattered beneath their feet. The ground cracked when they clashed, truly fitting for two monsters. Yujiro got more excited as he fought because finally, his son was strong enough to be his opponent. Baki was both resentful and secretly crying out for his father's acknowledgement, so he poured all his love and hatred into his punches. At a peak moment, they even paused to have an imaginary meal together mid-fight. A strange moment of connection between these two monstrous father and son, before continuing the bloody battle. This bizarre detail made me stunned, but reflecting on it, it showed that the father and son had truly connected and understood each other through their fists, without needing words. Finally, the battle concluded with Yujiro's victory, but at the same time, he shared the title of the strongest man in the world with his son. Baki, despite losing, had a serene smile on his face, because he had achieved what he longed for most, his father's recognition. After the deathmatch, all hatred was resolved in a special way. Yujiro and Baki somewhat reconciled. They sat and drank together after the fight, opening a new chapter in their father-son relationship. A battle perfect both visually and emotionally, a complete ending for the entire series. This solo battle affirms why Baki is a monument in martial arts, anime and manga. Strength, technique, emotion, and everything blended together in an unforgettable confrontation. Netero vs. Maroom. Hunter x Hunter. Speaking of classic solo battles, I cannot miss the decisive match between Chairman Netero and the Ant King Maroom in Hunter x Hunter. The setting is the King's Palace in the East Gordo Palace, an arena set up by the Ant King for the decisive battle. Old Man Netero, an S-class hunter and chairman of the Hunter Association, faced Maroom, the Ant King, one of the strongest creatures at that time. Right from the opening minutes, this battle displayed Nen at a legendary level. Netero's famous ultimate technique, 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva, was unleashed. A gigantic Guanyin statue with 1,000 arms behind the old man appeared, filling the entire arena. Maroom was also stunned, eyes wide. But when he charged in to test its power, he was immediately beaten like a drum. But on the other side was the Ant King Maroom, a creature that got stronger the more he fought, and he gradually adapted to the intensity. Even though his body took quite a few injuries, Maroom's eyes changed from surprise to excitement, then to respect. For the first time in his life, he experienced the supreme power and technique of a human. Maroom, who initially looked down on weak humans, was gradually convinced that Netero was a worthy opponent for him to take seriously. When Netero realized his strength was depleted and Maroom was still standing, he decided to go all in. The old man risked his life force, unleashing his final technique. The 100th hand, Zero Hand. The 1,000 hands of Guanyin combined into two giant hands. Embracing Maroom, unleashing a burst of pure nen energy. Blowing away the peak of the arena, the ground was carved into a deep crater. Maroom took the full force of Zero Hand. But Maroom was not yet dead, recovering slowly thanks to his bizarre abilities. Netero was now IVE energy. His heart stopped beating. He had saved his final ace in the hole. The miniature rose bomb planted in his heart. It immediately detonated, a small nuclear explosion, wiping out the entire area. A blinding flash of light, a mushroom cloud rising high. Maroom was torn apart in the explosion. Netero also turned to ash, an overly tragic ending for both. It turned out that from the start, Netero knew he couldn't win with Nen, so he accepted becoming a bad guy, using a dirty bomb to eliminate the evil demon. After the battle, although Maroom survived the explosion, he was poisoned by radiation from the rose, ultimately dying in the arms of his little friend Komugi, bringing an end to the Ant King's reign. Meanwhile, Netero's sacrifice saved humanity from the ant threat, while also exposing the dark side of humans, willing to use weapons of mass destruction. A great warrior died alone, while his enemy died in the warmth of friendship. This solo battle truly makes one ponder. Grand, brutal, but incredibly humane, deserving to be one of the most memorable battles in anime history. Jotaro vs. Dio JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 3 Ora Ora Toki yo Tame. Stop time. Just hearing this legendary line, I believe you folks immediately remember the peak solo battle between Jotaro and Dio in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 3. The setting is the mysterious nights of Cairo, where the Joestar group finally faced Dio Brando, the immortal vampire who had caused so much suffering to the family. After his teammates were defeated one by one, only Jotaro Kujo stood up to directly confront Dio. This wasn't just a personal battle. It was a showdown to end a 100-year feud between Dio and the Joestar family. In terms of stand power and technique, this battle is famous for its mind games and spectacular action. Dio with the world possessed the ability to stop time for a few seconds. He fully exploited this ability. Every time the world stopped time, Dio calmly walked forward, threw knives at Jotaro, or even dropped a road roller on him to crush his opponent. As for Jotaro, initially, he was beaten constantly because he didn't understand Dio's move. But gradually, Jotaro's Star Platinum evolved. He began to feel an even move within the stop time. True to JoJo style, Jotaro even stopped his own heart for a few seconds to make Dio think he was dead, successfully escaping the next time skip. When the tide of battle turned, Jotaro suddenly announced that Star Platinum could also stop time, just like the world. At this point, Dio paled, and fans like me screamed with joy. In the final seconds, Dio played dirty, covering Jotaro's eyes with blood. Using the world, he charged in, intending to finish him off. Unfortunately, Jotaro's Star Platinum was faster. In the decisive moment, it punched directly into Dio's leg, destroying his knee, and the damage spread throughout his body, causing Dio's head to explode like a watermelon. The 100-year curse on the Joestar family ended. As a result, Jotaro's mother Holly was cured. Surviving teammates were saved. Joseph received a blood transfusion from Dio, but Jotaro filtered out the vampiric aspect. Jotaro became the hero who saved the whole family line. This solo battle left a deep impression, both bloody and incredibly tense, yet with classic bizarre JoJo moments. To me, the peak was Jotaro's determined spirit and cunning when facing a stronger enemy. The guy didn't just use his fists, but also his head to win. This is definitely one of the best final boss battles ever drawn. Intense, creative, and full of emotion. Feels great when justice defeats evil. Magna vs. Dante Black Clover. The biggest shock among the solo battles in Black Clover is definitely the fight where the peasant defeated the boss. Magna vs. Dante. The setting takes place in the Space Kingdom arc, when the Black Bulls attack the Dark Tride's base. Dante Zagratis, who had previously defeated both Yami and Estao, was recovering to return to the fight. Just then, Magna's swing appeared and blocked him. On one side was the mage from a peasant background with weak magic. On the other was the magic king of the Space Kingdom with infinite power. From the beginning of the story until now, Magna has mostly been a comedic relief character and only fought weaklings. That he boldly challenged Dante to a 1v1 solo, his eyes blazing like never before. Dante sneered contemptuously. Even trash knows how to dream. Everyone thought Magna was committing suicide, but Magna had prepared a shocking surprise. In terms of strategy, Magna proved the intelligence of a street fighter cannot be underestimated. He had secretly researched and created soul chain magic, a soul-binding barrier, a magic circle that attached fiery chains to both him and Dante. As soon as the fight began, Magna threw the chains and hit Dante, immediately splitting the total magic power of the two. This meant Dante, who had a monstrous magic reserve, was now forced down to Magna's level. Dante's expression at that moment was exactly like, "What the hell?" when he suddenly saw his power drastically reduced. Meanwhile, Magna laughed loudly, cunningly. "Now, the boss is on my level of mana. Let's have a fair duel." So the solo battle turned into a true fisticuffs match. No more infinite recovery or magic tricks. Dante had to swing his fists, and Magna rolled up his sleeves and fought him like two boxers. Every punch exchange was fierce. On one side, a large demon king punching like a hammer. On the other side, a street-tough young man with iron will. Never before in Black Clover had there been a fight so purely focused on hand-to-hand combat. Magna took several steel punches from Dante. His face was bloody, several teeth broken, but he still smiled. He retaliated with a fiery uppercut fire punch, making Dante stumble. Dante roared. Both charged in, exchanging rapid combos of punches. Their bodies were bruised and battered, as Magna's mana was also running out. Finally, with a fierce fire slash, Magna knocked down Dante, to the stunned silence of everyone. The dark-tried guy lay on the ground, eyes rolled back, unable to believe he had just lost to a peasant. Magna stood unsteadily, gasping for breath, but his face shone with victory. The outcome of this shocking solo battle was Dante, the most important pillar of the Space Kingdom, suffered an utterly humiliating defeat. This wasn't just a victory for Magna, but also a message from Black Clover. Never underestimate the weak. An incredibly satisfying solo battle. Exciting from beginning to end. It changed the tide of the war and elevated a supporting character into a hero. Saber vs. Lancer fates a stay night on a dark night in Fauki City. Young boy Shiru Emiya unexpectedly became the target of the servant Lancer. Lancer stabbed Shiru through the chest right on the school grounds. It seemed like it was over, but luckily, Rintosaka managed to revive him using a heavenly artifact. Rushing home in a half-dead state, Shiru was again pursued by Lancer. Before the summoning circle, the Knightess Saber Artori Pendragon appeared to protect him. The saber of the King of Knights, with the sealed sword Excalibur. Amidst the quiet backdrop, two powerful warriors officially faced each other. The dazzling light of Saber's sword flashed, contrasting with the challenging red spear of Lancer. Saber and Lancer unleashed techniques like a sword storm dance. Saber charged in, delivering sharp blows in an instant. Lancer immediately retreated, his spear whirling like a whirlwind, always looking for an opening to counterattack. The two sides exchanged techniques skillfully. One is the top-tier defensive ability and standard sword movements of the Night King. One is the speed and ruthless courage of the Hound of Kielan. The scene was full of explosions, the sound of swords and spears clashing, magic light like brilliant fireworks before the fans' eyes. The outcome of this clash changed the course of the war. Saber officially accepted Shiru as her master, from then on, becoming his most important ally in the Holy Grail War. The opponent Lancer was forced to retreat and report back to Kairi, tearing newly discovered respect after seeing Saber's true strength. Shiru transformed from a novice player into someone with undeniable status, now ready to step onto the battlefield with his sword at his side. The one-on-one death game immediately heated up. Lancer secretly out to be cautious, while other masters and servants probably started recalculating their forces. In short, the Saber versus Lancer battle, although short, revealed a lot, opening a turning point for Shiru and Saber, leaving a lasting impression on fans who love visually spectacular and intense solo fights. Saitama vs. Garou One Punch Man. If I had to choose the most overpowered solo battle on the planet, in the truest sense of the word, I would offer up Saitama vs. Garou in One Punch Man. The setting is the end of the Monster Association arc. After accidentally absorbing power from the entity god, Garou became Cosmic Fear Mode, a being in human form but emitting planet-level radiation. Every step he took caused living creatures to collapse and wither. Garou had cosmic knowledge. He could mimic any skill, unleashing space-bending attacks or even creating gamma-ray bursts, an event that usually happens when stars die. The hero hunter also became abnormally evil at this point. He brutally defeated S-class heroes without mercy, even piercing Geno's right in front of the main character as a challenge. There was no more joking around. Saitama's face at this moment was cold as ice. For Earth to be safe, Tiro Blast had to teleport both of them into outer space, specifically to a moon of Jupiter. Because if they fought on Earth, humanity would have to move to a new planet immediately. And so the battle officially began. With absolute mastery, Garou could use all the skills of the heroes he had encountered. And the peak was that he could copy Saitama's strength. However, everyone knows that Saitama's strength isn't fixed at any level, because it surpasses all logic. Even though Garou tried to mimic Saitama's style, he couldn't keep up with that terrifying rate of growth. It was like fighting a game glit. The two of them just exchanged punches, surpassing the speed of light in the true sense of the word. If Garou unleashed a gamma ray burst that could destroy planets, Saitama responded with a serious table flip, flipping the entire moon's terrain. A sneeze from Saitama blew away part of Jupiter's atmosphere. Garou got more and more confused as he fought, because even though he copied the power, he was still left far behind, like a bicycle chasing a spaceship. And the outcome of the battle, everyone knows. However, it ended in a rather unexpected way. Garou taught Saitama how to time travel, to return to the point in time when Garou hadn't fully completed his power. And that's when the Zero Punch was unleashed. A punch that didn't destroy anything but eradicated all the evil energy within Garou. After Garou woke up, he had no power left, only newfound clarity. As for Saitama, he didn't need anyone to cheer for him. He didn't need to be a national hero. He just quietly held Genos's core, and went back to his ordinary B-class anonymous life. To me, this battle went down in manga history. Not just because of the infinite power scale, but also because it was the first time we saw Saitama truly fight with all his heart. Fighting not just to win, but to protect someone precious to him. Goku vs. Frieza Dragon Ball Z name. Speaking of visually spectacular solo battles, you can't miss those guys with dyed hair in Dragon Ball. And if I had to pick one battle that I found most exciting, the 1v1 battle between the Monkey Kid and Frieza on Name would immediately pop into my head. On the planet Namek, after Vegeta fell to Frieza's hands, the protagonist finally appeared to deal with this tyrannical monster. The entire battle's advantage initially leaned completely towards Frieza with his 1 million power level, while Goku only had a mere 200,000, punching, ticking, shooting blasts every way. Although he caused Frieza some minor difficulty, it was clear that at that moment, Goku was not his opponent. It wasn't until Frieza took it upon himself to kill Krillin that the situation flipped 180 degrees, from being one of the weakest Saiyans, abandoned by his own race. Goku's power exploded, becoming a Super Saiyan due to rage. It was no longer fighting to win, but to seek revenge and protect his friends. In reality, all the battles in Dragon Ball are no-brain fights. If it's difficult, just dye your hair and you'll win. But the decisive battle between Frieza and Goku was peak because this was the first time Super Saiyan was showcased, before it became as common as vegetables in the market, where any Saiyan could buy it. Not only that, it's in the brutality that Frieza brought. It's rare that we see the protagonist's side die at the hands of the villain, and die in a very heartbreaking way, like exploding into pieces. To me, this battle was peak because of the emotion it brought, not just because the fighting was visually satisfying. The final outcome was Frieza's complete destruction. But that was only temporary. Everyone knows this guy is the most resilient in the series. Those killed in the battle were revived with the Dragon Balls. Vegeta reformed and became a trustworthy ally of the Z fighters. A perfect ending for the best arc of Dragon Ball. I'm even more convinced that every 1v1 battle is not just chaotic clashes. Every confrontation leaves emotions for many fans. Some battles even become icons of the anime and manga world, and serve as inspiration for many later works. This list certainly cannot encompass every legendary solo fight in the anime and manga world. If there's any showdown that got you folks excited that I missed, don't hesitate to comment and let me know right away, okay? Now, goodbye and see you folks in the next video.